Greetings and welcome back to the Game News Canada show presented by GBG Plc. I'm your host, Steve McAllister. The scramble to keep up with the Joneses in the business of sports these days extends far beyond the playing surface and boardroom. That includes the world of data technology and, of course, these days, artificial intelligence. In those areas, Sportradar is doing quite fine, thank you very much. The Swiss sports technology company enjoyed a 2024 in which it was recognized at the SBC Summit with the Best Live Betting Product Award, along with Betting Product of the Year and the Data Service Provider of the Year by the American Gambling Awards. To speak about Sportradar's secrets to success and what's to come in 2025, we welcome to the podcast the Senior Vice President of Fan Engagement for Sportradar, Pat Mostboeck. Hey, Patrick, thanks so much for doing this. Just first off, I mean, you've been with the company, I think, since 2016 now, but you're just finishing or closing in on the 1 year anniversary of your latest role as a VP of fan engagement. What's the first 10 months of this role been like for you?
First of all, hi, Steve, and thanks for being part of this show. In terms of a quick introduction of myself, so as you said, I do enjoy to be part of Sportradar since many years, and in those years I had the opportunity to see many different roles, and since a couple of months I have the pleasure to be responsible for the fan engagement function within Sportradar, which is comprising of a set of business units that all have one thing in common, which is it all focuses around the matters of client and customer retention. So how can we help our clients to create digital products and sports betting products, ultimately helping them to keep their customers engaged?
Patrick, interesting. Like I've been in this industry for almost 45 years now, and when I started as a sports writer back in 1981, there was no such term as fan engagement, and I would even suggest that maybe 10 years ago, I mean, fan engagement was basically going to the stadium and watching a game or watching a game on television. But it's obviously become much, much more than that. Just for you, you yourself, like what did fan engagement that one day it became, it was something that was talked about all the time, or what about what's your own personal experience with fan engagement?
It's a very good question. I guess one that we probably could talk about for the next hour. So I also tried to be quick about it, or at least as quick as I can. So I think for me, the rise of fan engagement, both as a term but I guess ultimately also as a combination of different things, is really about I guess two areas really. The one is, I think, over the years, and especially over the last years, I think there's so many different opportunities to engage sports fans out there. That is both technically, this is from a content perspective, this is from a platform perspective. It goes over so many different opportunities, and for me, fan engagement from a certain perspective is just kind of an umbrella that tries to summarize all of this and also summarize the opportunity. So I think that is the one aspect. The other aspect is, next to all the opportunities, I think what has also grown clearly over the last years, and probably over the last decade as well, is also the competition that sports faces, not so much between the different leagues and sports and competitions. I mean, this is clearly also there, but in the end, sport is just one option that we all can spend our free time with. I mean, luckily we're in a position to also spend part of our professional time with it. But I think this is also something that goes with it, that clearly we also have a task to make sports as engaging as possible in order for fans out there to decide ultimately to spend their time and their money as well around all the leagues we love to watch and to follow.
You mentioned at the top here, Pat, you work across several business units at Sportradar, and you look at your role and Sportradar has partnerships with and Envy and the NA National Hockey League, NASCAR, the Professional Men's Tennis Tour, the ATP, and then you also work with most of the major sportsbook operators. And then I'm sure you're working, if not day to day, certainly week to week with engineers and data analysts and technology experts. What's kind of what makes you not necessarily the most happy, but what kind of excites you about the role, and what is it, something that you really like digging into with those various business units?
I think for me personally, it's really the forward-looking opportunity. Being Sportradar, but not only being Sportradar, but also as you mentioned, working together with our league partners, both in the North American market, but also internationally, as well as then also working together with our clients. Again, those on the sportsbook side, equally also those on the media side. I think that is just an incredibly interesting position to be in, and I think what we can nurture is this position on working both sports video, but equally also sports data as the key sources of and the key fuel that is driving our industry. And being able to play just a little role in trying to shape that and shaping those new products that ultimately all the fans out there are using to consume the sport they love is something I'm very, very happy about.
Hey Patrick, do you ever see a day again? It's my background is I started in the sports industry as a sports journalist, and I don't know how much you follow Twitter these days, but there's been this tug of war, I think, for a decade now between many traditional sports media people, many people who have gotten into sports analytics, and I've always felt there's lots there for everybody. I mean, there are going to be young sports fans who love to dig in the data. We're especially seeing this with sports bettors who want as much data as possible when they're making wagers. There's still a lot of value to what I would call traditional content. Storytelling, reporting, opinion pieces. Is that have you kind of seen that shift as well? As your experience is that young sports fans, they really do want that access to technology and data.
I'd say in summary, I guess there's probably not the one fits all approach across all the sports fans and followers. So I think to your point, in terms of the younger audiences, but also the ones that are following the sport since many years, maybe even decades, I think all the available forms of distribution and different types of content and media rights have its place to be. And I think this is also the reason in the end why on the one side we see so many different platforms. We see, if you look globally and holistically on the media rights landscape, I mean, content and rights such as those of our partners of NBA or ATP or Bundesliga, to take some international examples, they're very much distributed amongst different platforms, whether those are broadcasters, digital platforms, even owned and operated platforms. And I think the reason for this is obviously there is a target group, a specific target group for all these different platforms. Some of them are more casual fans. Some of them, as you mentioned, are maybe die-hard fans and kind of the younger audience group. And this audience group has different habits or specific habits that I think sports rights holders and in turn also we as someone supporting them have recognized and are trying to serve these needs. So I think that this is where it goes back to my initial comment of there's probably not this one fits all approach, but I think as someone serving this interest, I think we have to be ready to serve those different needs of those different audiences.
Something we discuss on this podcast a lot, Patrick, kind of the intersection of sports betting and sports media, and here in Canada, where legal sports betting is only became legalized in 2021, there has been a bit of a struggle for media companies and sportsbook operators to figure out how you integrate betting content and regular sports content, and not turn off fans, but yet provide enough information to appease sports bettors. And I'm just curious, is there a role that Sportradar has been able to play to help the leagues and the right holders and media figure that out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a space and the territory that is, of course, very interesting for us because clearly, in our understanding of the sports world, both the sports betting segment and the sports media segment play together. And I think if you look at it both from a North American point of view, but also from a global point of view, I think there's more organizations that recognize, okay, on the one side, I maybe have started as a sports betting company, but I can become a more kind of media oriented firm over time, as well as doing it the other way around. I mean, essentially, some of the most successful media companies in turn have become also very successful sports betting firms. So I think from a business perspective, we can see all these examples. I think what all of these have in common, no matter if you go from one way or the other or vice versa, is I think it's all connected via the interest in the content itself and the league. And I guess this is what brings me back to my earlier point about why all those different platforms have their reason to exist and why they all serve a different need, and ultimately they all fuel into those different business models, whether in the end it's a sports betting type business model and monetization, or whether it's a distribution via a common broadcaster or media outlet.
Hey, I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into how Sports Radar is helping, the leagues and the right holders develop new ways to engage their audiences. And it's a very busy year for your company. I mean, there's the work that you do with the NFL through the Insight series, and I think you announced back in October an expanded partnership with the NBA. Your sport is doing a lot more now in the area of micro betting. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about those programs, or the ones that you have found to be particularly exciting?
Sure. So I think from our US league partnerships, obviously we do focus quite a lot on our partnerships with the NBA in particular, as well as then obviously also the NHL and MLB. With the NBA specifically, I think we have delivered. We have launched, especially start of the new season now, the 24-25 season, a very interesting set of new capabilities, which all have one thing in common. All those products, all those programs are driven very much by tracking data. So we are utilizing, on top of the event data that obviously exists for many years, we are able now to utilize a very rich set of tracking data, which is collected by the NBA and delivered by us, and gives us the opportunity for those audiences, or for the betting audiences, and for us to deliver them into compelling products. So concrete examples of this is what we call NBA Foresight. So this is a product where we are, on top of the streaming, we are creating augmented graphics, which should help a punter on a sports betting website to understand the game better, understand the context, and therefore be able to place more educated bets. So this is one product that we have just recently launched, and equally, and this is again where it comes back to this behavior of convergence that you have mentioned. We're also using the same tracking data to power a new set of products that we have launched towards our media clients and the broadcasters, where obviously also we are also a partner to the NBA in distributing this to the media clients. So for here we have launched something we call advanced broadcast visualizations, which again make use of this tracking data to power richer graphics, more compelling graphics, and therefore tell the story of the game better ultimately.
Very, very, very cool. Yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned it, but there's also part of the NBA partnership is something called MBET. and that gives bettors the ability to actually monitor their wagers, I think, in real time. Um, yeah, I mean, it, it just seems ever expanding products or ever expanding opportunities, not just for the right holders and data companies, Patrick, but just for the sports fan as well, to have that, to expand that engagement that they have in a game or a match.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what you're turning to is really this kind of personalized theme of how to engage a sports fan. And I mean, you mentioned embed, which yeah, thanks for referencing it at this point. I mean, obviously, we have also launched embed as a feature into the NBA League Pass, and the thought behind that really is giving an NBA fan that is interested in sports betting just an entry option into this world. So showing them some live odds on the one side as a sports betting information, but equally also as a bit of context of how the game is going, because also here those odds, those probabilities can be very interesting, very compelling. And this is I think somewhat how we try to approach the market, but also how we work very closely with our league partners and also with some of the largest clients and sportsbook in the market in driving further uh, this understanding. And obviously, as you mentioned in turn, I mean, it's not a self-fulfilling purpose in the end, but we're trying to do this because we think it ultimately creates a better client and customer experience.
Hey, Patrick, where are we in terms of latency? And again, this is something that when I started covering the industry back in 2021, there was a feeling at that time that the latency just wasn't at a point yet where that you couldn't have a seamless in-play betting process or protocol, whatever you want to call it, because the latency wasn't quite there yet. Are we any closer to kind of hitting that sweet spot?
I think so. Yes. Also in the areas of content distribution and how it's being delivered and what it means for latency. I think we have and also the companies supporting us in those areas, I think, have made strong technological advancements in the last couple of years. I think aside from the actual latency of a content piece and whether it's now X or Y seconds, I think what is very, very important, again, from a consumer perspective, is that there is no such thing as a spoiler if you understand what I'm saying in the experience itself. So I think what would obviously be a friction from a consumer's perspective if, for example, data is faster than the picture that you're seeing. And this is some of the pitfalls that also obviously we're also trying to avoid with the technology that we provided at all times between the sports data that is provided and the stories that are being told via the sports data and the images and the visuals that the consumers are seeing, that this is clearly in sync at all times and therefore provides a strong user experience.
You mentioned personalization a second ago, and I had Mark Phillips about on the podcast in December, and we were talking about in 2023 when I was going to conferences. I was at ICE in London and then the SBC Summit in New Jersey, and there was a lot of talk about personalization back then, and in 2024, and part of that maybe I wasn't at as many conferences in 2024. But there didn't seem to be as much talk of personalization. Is that something that's on, pardon the bad pun, something that's on your radar, on your company's radar? And has, for you, as personalization, has there been a shift, or has there been an evolution in what that means for a sports fan?
Yeah, I guess I understand where you're coming from. I think for me, personalization remains to be a key theme. I think whilst it is probably less talked about in recent months, it clearly has become, yeah, I think a stronger focus into execution. So we, from a Sportradar perspective, I think we do have built over the last couple of years, and also specifically with the acquisition of a company called VAX, which I can very much highlight because I think those colleagues are delivering very compelling software. We've also made our dedicated investment in the space. which on the one hand is something that is very useful. At the same time, I think personalization can mean very different things on different devices and platforms and so on. And there's obviously, it's a broad spectrum between personalization in terms of information that you have about a consumption behavior versus also some active personalization that the user drives via the consumption decision. So I think it's a broad spectrum. My perception would be that over the last probably even years and months, I think there's been done very, very good steps in terms of execution. Probably less is being spoken about it, but sometimes that's not even a worse thing.
Hey, gaming news guys! Are you ready to win a bigger share of Canada's rapidly expanding gaming market? Then GBG are ready to help. As the global leaders in identity verification, GBG partner with over 60% of iGaming Ontario brands to help them onboard more players, maximize match rates, and deliver FinTrack compliance. Visit gbgplc.com today and talk to the trust experts. Hey, I want to ask you, Patrick, just about the advancements that Sportradar has made and overall with broadcast technology and how that's helping with the fan experience. And again, I think this is where AI is coming into play and deeper data. Just how are you working with leagues, rights holders, and sportsbook operators to bring those new streaming options?
Yeah, I think it's there's quite a lot of different viewpoints on this, and also ways how you can go about it. I think something that is very, very interesting for us to explore is obviously not only to visualize and to tell the story of what is going on in a certain sports event, but also going more in the direction of already trying to predict what might happen in a sports event, because this again is something that can be very, very interesting, both for a sports fan, but equally also for someone who might be also interested in placing a bet on a certain sports event, on an in-play action going on. And here, those probabilities, those predictions can be very, very interesting to inform decisions better, to educate, and to ultimately also provide a better understanding of a certain event.
Is there an example, like whether it's the NFL or NBA project, that highlights that thought?
I think not yet on a live state. So I think this is at least from the collaboration that we are having. I think this is something we are currently working on as we speak, and I think digging deeper and deeper on the go. I think this is also clearly something for the following months and years where we are very eager to explore new ways of working and also see what the industry itself, I think, has on offer. And yeah, I think that's clearly something as a company which keeps us very excited.
I wonder if there's, we mentioned that legal sports betting is still fairly new in North America. It's been around Europe much longer, obviously. But I also wonder, is there a particular sport or a particular league where a company like Sportradar, you've been able to learn and then apply them to other sports? Like, is there a sport that where you're able to take a bunch of lessons learned and then apply that to your partnership with the NFL or your partnership with the National Hockey League?
I think, over the last 10, 15, 20 years, I guess there's many success stories. I think something that I'm very happy to tell and elaborate on is, I think, the emergence of table tennis, because, it's something that, to someone who is just a casual sports fan of a certain league or something, table tennis is, or ping pong, however you want to call it, is something that is not, a day-to-day sports consumer thing. I think really from a sports betting perspective, what table tennis has learned us, and not just in the COVID period where it really emerged as a very interesting sport to consume and ultimately also to bet on, is those very fast betting cycles, also those opportunities to bet on points, on sets, and so on and so forth. And I think this learning that we have been able to take on table tennis we have then also in turn taken to a lot of other racket sports out there, whether it's tennis, which is obviously the biggest racket sports from a total perspective, but also the other emerging racket sports out there, whether it's pickleball, obviously big in the North American market, or in turn paddle tennis, which is growing and growing in the Latin American or European destinations.
Yeah, it's funny. Before you start answering that question, I thought back to I think it was at ICE in 2023 when I met with a couple of your people, and they were showing us the new technology that had been developed around table tennis at that time, and being able to compile data from each stroke on a table tennis court. And again, that's not that long ago. We're talking literally what 13 months ago when Sportradar was introducing that technology. And to your point, we've seen like table tennis is still one of the most bet on sports in the state of Colorado, and we're what 3 years post COVID now.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is what shows you, whilst there's so many options out there, a sport like table tennis is able to catch the interest of quite a broad community ultimately. And I think this is only possible because it's an exciting opportunity from a sports betting perspective. And I think another thing that table tennis clearly also has achieved is using the benefit of technology ultimately to position it as an advantage, because in the meantime, and I think this is also what you're referencing to and what we have showcased a while back also at ICE, is that we are collecting all this data via the power of computer vision, and are driving accuracy, driving latency, and so on and so forth. So it's clearly a very good example where technology is used to bring advancement and clear benefit to the sport, but also to the commercialization of the sport.
I'm curious, Patrick. I mean, have companies like yours, have you had to drag the leagues kicking and screaming into embracing data and AI and technology? Or again, I mean, everybody's trying to kind of unlock or keep, fixing the puzzle that's fan engagement. Are those leagues embracing what you bring?
No, I guess absolutely not. I think what we are really enjoying also with our league partners is a very good co-creation. So whether it's an NBA or an ATP, TDI, Tennis Data Innovations, or also other league partners, I think in the meantime on both sides, both the league side, but also on our side, I think we have been able to establish different forums of co-creation. So for example, together with the NBA, we have a kind of a governance in place where we kind of really meet each month and discuss new opportunities, new ideas, and how we can bring things forward. And that's, I mean, that's I hope ultimately good for the fans out there from a very personal kind of experience, and also for the teams here at Sportradar. I think it's obviously also more exciting to work on future products and how we are able to shape that, versus obviously maintaining existing products. For a product manager and engineer, I'd say that's obviously also the more interesting part of the job ultimately.
Are there any specific people like at the league level or with a rights holder that you enjoy? You have these conversations around data and fan engagement and people who are really, I guess, for the lack of a better word, evangelists for what companies like Sportradar are trying to do with data and technology and AI.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's always difficult to call out single names, because if you look at an organization again as our league partner, the NBA, I mean, there's so many different people working on that. I guess over the years, if I were to call out one name, I guess clearly someone like Scott Kaufman-Ross has been at the forefront from an NBA's perspective in pushing the topic, also pushing the narrative, both in the US market, but also internationally. And I think has also helped us shaping the way up. And that's, I think that's great. And that's also what we're looking forward to from a Sportradar perspective, to continue in the same shape and form.
And I'd suggest to Patrick that Scott's kind of been a trailblazer, and other leagues have realized that they have to have a Scott Kaufman Ross or have that role, and somebody who's invested in that like he's been.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess over the years, obviously, certain expertise has been built, and I mean, in the end, I mean, it's a global industry, but at the same time, it's also a small family in a certain sense. So I think there's a lot of exchange going on between the leagues themselves, also between the sports books. So I guess if you want to see it from that angle, I think this exchange is also helping driving forward innovation, better products, and I guess going back to the beginning of our discussion here, also ultimately driving better consumer experiences.
Yeah, and that's certainly something I've seen at conferences when you listen to panels featuring sports executives from the different leagues. That there's a lot of they do listen to each other. They're trading ideas. They're seeing how certain uses of technology could benefit their sport. So there certainly are is a sharing of best practices. Hey, I think anytime I have someone like you on, Patrick, I have to raise the whole AI question, and again, it's almost like you can't read a story anywhere these days without AI being mentioned. For Sportradar, I mean, what is artificial intelligence, and what gets you excited, but AI as you look forward.
No, it's I mean it's obviously the topic of the hour. I guess it's fair to say. I think from a sporter perspective, there's two main fields of focus that we have identified for ourselves. The one is uh, pushing and continuing to streamline all of our operations and kind of the back end, the brain of the things. This is something I very much view from the sidelines because it's not an area I'm involved in, but I can clearly see from our end, that we are trying to use this in order to become more efficient, streamline our operations, and so on and so forth. So that is the one area. The other one, which I'm more part of, and I'm very happy to also work with a very significant set of experts on our side. Both our team that we have built over the years, but you might have also followed that we have had great additions in this part of our business in this year with the hiring of our new CTO Behzad Besadi, who joined us from Google. And I think in this area, we are also then really focusing on the fan engagement and how can AI help us to further drive those experiences. Products like, for example, Foresight are a first glimpse in that direction. But I'm very keen for more and more to come in this area.
Yeah, and it reminds me, while researching for this particular episode, Carsten Koerl, your CEO, was on a podcast recently and referred to Sportradar leading a global revolution in sports analytics, and that kind of indicates that it's almost as crazy as it sounds that we're still in the very early days, and there's so much more that can be done in this area, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, ultimately, we had the pleasure of welcoming Carsten here in Vienna. So I'm based in Austria, and we had the pleasure of welcoming him here again this week. And that's I guess what all of us here drives on a day-to-day basis. That whilst I think we can say that we are a successful company already to date, I think the opportunity we have towards the future, the products we can build, and so on and so forth, is something that truly excites us.
Hey, Patrick, just two more questions. I just wonder what are the big projects for you looking ahead towards 2025? There's some specific projects that you're working on right now with leagues or right holders, or what's kind of at the top of your to-do list for the new year?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of different things on the agenda, but maybe just to mention a few. I think what is a top priority for us. Clearly, beginning of the year is we do have some new tennis content on. So we have engaged in a partnership with UT Tennis, which we are supposed to roll out beginning of the new year. So that's really a strong volume of tennis content, more than 20,000 live events spread across the globe. So quite a significant volume that we're looking forward to, and also power and fuel with some new technology. So that's some latest developments in tennis. Obviously, we're also looking forward to further shape our partnership with the ATP in the tennis space. And again, here, tennis is a great sport from a sports betting perspective. So we are very, very excited by that. Equally, we are looking forward to push ahead with our NBA partnership. And then clearly, soccer is a very relevant sport for us from a global perspective. And I think also here, together with our league partners, we are trying to push ahead. So that there isn't, I'm sure I've now forgotten 5 things to mention. So you can see there is so much going on. And very much looking forward already to the next year.
And obviously the NFL playoffs and Super Bowl, which I'm sure will be a busy 6 or 7 weeks for Sportradar to start the year as well.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah. Hey, last question, Patrick. There's you and I are like, I think we both consider ourselves very fortunate to work in the sport business. I think people like us, we get in this industry because as kids we love watching games. And I'm not going to speak for you, but in my case, I was never going to be a National Hockey League player or be a Major League Baseball player, but I knew I wanted to work in the sports industry. The whole landscape of the opportunities out there have changed so much since I went to journalism school back in the 1970s. Any advice for young people now who want to work in sport and what the kind of paths that you would recommend they take?
Good question. I guess probably the one advice is really on the one side, be curious about what it's out there. I think on the one side, clearly there's a lot of tech related opportunities, and I think it's always very good to stay on the latest there and follow those developments. At the same time, I think just use the opportunities as they present themselves. So I think my first job was also starting to write about local grassroots soccer games next to me. So that's something I very much enjoyed some time ago, and over the years I had the pleasure from those grassroots days now to engage with some of the biggest properties in sport, which is a very good development if I go through the past years.
Patrick Mostboeck is the Senior President of Fan Engagement for Sportradar. Hey, Patrick, it's so great to have you on the show. I wish we'd had you on sooner, but let's please stay in touch. Wishing you and everyone at Sportradar the very best in 2025, and I look forward to continuing to see what the company's doing.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be on with you, and for sure, let's stay in touch.
That's it for this episode of the Gaming News Canada show presented by GBG Plc. You can find us at gamingnewscanada.ca. This podcast and all our episodes can also be found on the Gaming News Canada YouTube channel. Again, thanks so much to Patrick Mostboeck for joining us today, and we will see everybody again very soon.